Hi guys, Ms. Francis here. Today I would like to talk to you about fats. Specifically, we're going to address phospholipids and steroids. But before we jump into steroids and phospholipids, let's discuss the major functions of fats. And there are three main functions. The first major function is going to be energy storage. And we had mentioned earlier that carbs are also used as energy storage. However, fats are twice as much, can store twice as much as energy per gram of carbohydrate, of a polysaccharide. But carbs are easier to break down and to build up. So we use our carbs as our initial source of energy. In the corner, you'll see that there is a video by Stephanie Castle. She reviews the functions of fats. She also adds as a function the fact that fats are a component of cell membranes. They are phospholipids, which we will get to in a second. Another function of fats is that it provides cushioning for our vital organs, as well as insulation, for example, blubber in animals such as whales. So it's good to have some fat. It's when we have too much fat that it becomes a health issue. So here's what I was addressing earlier, the use of fats and carbs for energy storage. So fats contain twice as much energy per gram than carbs. Therefore, the fats are a more efficient molecule for long-term energy storage, but carbs are easier to build and take apart. I believe we discussed this earlier as well. Explain why starch is a polymer, but a triglyceride is not. So a triglyceride is another name for a fat. The components of a fat are not just glycerol monomers or fatty acid monomers, whereas a starch's building blocks are monomers of glucose. Therefore, starch is a polymer, while triglyceride or fats are not. So the second type of fats that we're going to jump into are called phospholipids. Phospholipids are a major component of cell membranes, and they are composed of a glycerol, two fatty acids, and a phosphate group. Now, this phosphate group is made up of a phosphorus bound to 4 oxygen, and it's important because it carries a negative charge with it. Because the phosphate group has this negative charge, we say that phospholipids are amphipathic. That means they have a charge on one side and no charge on the other side. So on the hydrophilic side, there is going to be a charge, but on the hydrophobic side, there will be no charge. So let me talk more about what I mean. So down here, we've got our fatty acid tails. Our fatty acid tails are hydrophobic. They are water-fearing. There is no charge, and they have non-polar covalent bonds. Whereas the head of our phospholipid contains the phosphorus group, giving it a negative charge. Now, if we were to look at these fatty acid tails, how do we know whether one is saturated or unsaturated? Well, we look at the double bonds. The tail on the left side has no double bonds, right? This tail has no double bonds. Therefore, it is a saturated fatty acid. Whereas the tail on our right side does have a double bond right here, making it an unsaturated fatty acid. So make sure you can identify those. And the purpose of these phospholipids is that they serve as a barrier between the cell and the external environment, because the heads are on the outside layer as well as the inside layer, whereas the tails are that in-between layer. So here we've got water out here, and we've got water on the inside. This phospholipid bilayer, this part, protects that cell from the solution that's outside versus inside the cell. And it's going to play an important role in deciding which molecules can enter freely and which molecules are going to need help from a protein. For example, oxygen is a small molecule that is not charged. It will be able to freely enter our phospholipid bilayer. But other molecules, such as sodium, which is an ion that's charged, will not be able to enter our phospholipid bilayer. It's going to need help from a protein. Oops, sorry. Now we're going to move on to our next type of fat, known as steroids. Steroids include your cholesterol and certain hormones. The way you know that you're looking at a steroid is that it's got these 4 fused carbon rings. So steroids are going to be your derivatives of your sex hormones. Cholesterol is a very important steroid. This is the precursor from which all other steroids are synthesized. Many of those other steroids are your hormones, including your sex hormones. So while cholesterol is definitely an essential molecule, it's going to aid in the fluidity of your phospholipid bilayer. Too much of cholesterol is going to contribute to cardiovascular disease. So cholesterol can be found embedded within our phospholipid bilayer. It's going to be embedded in our phospholipid bilayer, and it's going to prevent those fatty acid tails from sticking to one another, therefore maintaining the fluidity of that phospholipid bilayer. So that is the information that I have about fats. I would love for you to complete the concept map that I handed out to you guys. You can now complete the phospholipids and the steroids section. Furthermore, there are some review questions that would be great for you to look over. All right, I hope that was good. Bye.